everyone. This is Karen with The Writer's Edge. I'm really excited to have Scott joining us from Ruck Films to talk about highlight films. This is a question that I get asked all the time about how do I do it? Do I need it? What makes a good film? And I thought, why not talk to a pro, someone who does this all the time? So Scott, I don't know if you want to start things off and just at least give some families a little bit of background about yourself, and then we can kind of dive into some of those topics.
Yeah, hi, Scott Murray here. I'm from Edinburgh, Scotland. I started playing professional rugby when I was 18, played for 17 years throughout Europe. Finished off in France. That's when I got into coaching. Coached in France for 3-4 years. I married an American, so my wife's American, and she wanted to come back to America, so came back to San Diego, and then I was lucky enough to get the San Diego Legion job, which I still coach here now at San Diego Legion. So I've been in coaching and playing rugby for 20 plus years. And just doing a lot of stuff with the collegiate draft, especially with us at San Diego Legion here. I thought, you know, looking at some of the films that the kids were sending out, I just thought I could really help. And so I started up a company, Ruck Films, and it's basically to try and help kids put out highlight reels, position-specific highlight reels, coach curated, so that, you know, when a coach looks at them, it will take them, you know, you don't want it any longer than 2 minutes, but it's a quick highlight reel where coaches will, you know, it'll grab their attention and they'll have a second look, and then they'll start doing a little bit more research. So yeah, and I wanted to help, and I want to grow rugby in America. I'm very, very passionate about rugby, and now that I'm here in America, you know, I want to grow it. I love it. I love what it's given to me. I love what's given to my family. I think that it's such a great sport. It builds character. And yeah, I want to try and get as many people excited about it as I am. So we started the company so we can help people get to where they can actually play professional college, collegiate, and rugby, and try and help as much as we can.
Great. Well, I want to get to the, you know, the stuff that I know people are tuning in for, because they're not here to listen to me this time. They definitely want to hear from you. So, you know, I think one of the common topics is, you know, maybe if you want to, and this is up to, you know, if you have some examples, but maybe what makes a good film in your opinion, some things that you choose to highlight in a highlight film.
Yeah, I think a common mistake is some people, they see Instagram and YouTube and they get really excited about putting big hits in or carries. But I think for a highlight reel, it's slightly different. You know, there is a place for that, but for a highlight reel, you know, you really want it to be position specific. So if a coach is looking for a prop, for example, you know, yes, he wants to see how you carry and how you defend, but he's looking to see how you scrum, how you lift in a line out, set piece, because that's your bread and butter. So I think sometimes a lot of films, it's like guys doing exciting things, offloads, and which is great and it should be there, but coaches really, the first thing they want to get hit with is, if it's a 10, they want to see, can he pass? Can he control a game? Can he kick? If it's a 9, what's his pass like from the ground? Can he kick? Props, like I've already said, scrummaging, lineouts, a second row. Can he jump? Is he good in the air? So that's where you really grab a coach's attention. You know, obviously the music and all the rest of it, it's exciting and it's good, but it's not what coaches want to see. And like I say, with the collegiate draft, I've been over 500 highlight reels that, you know, I see these mistakes again and again, and by the time it actually gets to what the coach wants to see, they've probably already switched off. So that's a huge mistake. And then filming as well. I see a lot of videos where the camera is on ground level and you can't really see, or it's panned out and it's too far back. You know, there's tips, like even if you jump on a ladder, for example, if you don't have a lot of, you know, you can't build or erect a platform, you know, you can just get up on a ladder, get height, and zoom in a little bit more so the coaches can actually see what's going on in these tight quarters. Yeah, and then for the highlight reel itself, you know, have headers so the coaches can click from set piece to kick into whatever it is, so it's easy accessible for the coaches.
So you're saying like in between, so you would organize it in sections. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Like you would organize it with like scrumming and then whatever it is, 5-6 clips, and then you would have lineouts and then kind of move it along
Yeah.
that
So
way.
for a second row, for example, which is my position, I would have first and foremost aerial work. So kickoffs, lineouts, especially. How good is he above with the ball above his head? Can he catch lineouts? Is he good at jumping? Is he explosives off the ground? And then you can go into carrying, defense, and stuff like that. And so every position has got specific skills that coaches are looking for. So what we try and do is we try and, as soon as the coach opens that, he sees what he wants to see, and he's like, "Yep, that's someone I want to look at. I want to." And then in the CV as well, it's always a good idea to have, because a highlight reel, if it's any more than 3 minutes, it's probably too long, in my opinion. And so what coaches like to see as well is, if they're excited about a player, you put links to their full games, so a coach can then go on and see, what's his work rate like, how is he over 80 minutes, stuff like that. But the first and foremost, they want to see what they're looking for. 10, they want to see if he can kick, what his passing's like. Same with nines. So really, really base it towards what you do in your position. And then for the CV, for example, you just want it to be a one-pager. So we have a whole CV with the videos embedded in the CV, and then it's got all the player stats and information, contact details. And then what I also like to do, which I think is really good, is have a separate little video. So normally people have pictures of themselves, like playing pictures, but it's quite a good idea to just answer 3 questions like, what can you give to the team? What are your main strengths and weaknesses? What you're working on? And then a coach can see, how you carry yourself, how you speak. And it's just another little added value to a CV, for example.
So basically like a highlight video, but also almost like an introductory video. Like, hi, my name is, John Smith, and I am a junior at this high school, et cetera, et cetera. Just kind of give them a little snippet so they can kind of meet them. And then also then go right into the highlight. Great.
Yeah, just something like, my main strengths are, I'm a great ball carrier. I'm aggressive. I'm a team first player. I give, just stuff like that. So the coach gets to see what he's kind of about in that small, it could be 20-second film clip.
Got it. Did you have an example you wanted to share or could share?
I have, yeah. Let me.
I think it's always helpful for students to see, what what a good film is. Like when I work with students with applications and essays, often I have them read some really good ones, and say, look, this is the kind of bar we're looking at for you to hit. So at least they have a sense of what we're working towards. And I would mention, while you're doing that, I think in the past, film was not as expected. I think most players and families didn't even have anyone to film. It really wasn't of importance. And I would say right now, the first thing that coaches ask for after finding out what is your GPA, are you admissible to this college, is, do you have any film? Because most of these colleges, even if they've got some funding under their belts, they don't have the budget to fly around and go to every single tournament. So the more film you can provide to help coaches see what kind of a player you are, the better. So that's why I love that there are resources like yourself to help students do this.
Yeah, and again, like I say, it's important on how you film the game as well, because the last thing you want is to watch a game of rugby and you don't really know who you're looking at because everyone's so far away, or you're ground level and there's crowd in the way. So there's ways around highlighting a player, so when a coach is watching it, you can actually see exactly who it is from the start of the clip to the end of the clip. So that's stuff we do too, like just putting circles around them, or freeze frame, or highlighting them, just to help the coach see what I'm trying to look at. So this is a young kid, Quinn, who is here. Did a film for him. I took the sound off. So quick intro, just tells you who he is. And then down the bottom, it's just got attack. So the coach that's watching it knows this is the attack, this is what he can do. And then it'll move on to aerial skills and counter attack, because he's a fullback. So that's obviously quite important. That's very position specific. So see, can he take a high ball? What's he like on counter attack? Can he kick? That's what this is showing. And then it goes on a little bit of his defense.
So you've slowed down this film though. Like they sent you the raw footage and you've slowed it down so that we can see it.
Some of it's slowed. Some of it, like there's I like to, maybe halfway through the film, I like to put a little bit of slow motion in there because it just grips you and brings you back into the film. Because sometimes as a coach, you can be watching something and suddenly you see a great piece of play. It will bring you back into the film. Because you can imagine a coach is looking at, like I say, last season's draft, I looked at 280 videos. You know, it's a lot. So you're just trying to look, you're trying to look for something to bring him back in. And bring the player and bring the coach back in to I guess this is the same one, just slightly less. So yeah, like I say, down the bottom here is just telling the coach what he's looking at. So then he can, like I just did there, he can scroll. Oh, here we go. I want to see some of his aerial work. Oh.
I like how his like face is on the left. Like it helps if they end up meeting, like, oh right, this is, because sometimes obviously, you know, especially if the players have scrum caps, they all look very similar. I always think it's helpful, even in that I have a lot of students do a rugby resume, and to have them put their school photo or something on it, because as you just said, when coaches are looking at, I don't know, 50, 75, 100 players, it's helpful to go, okay, right, this is the one that looks like this, or this is, so that when they meet, it's not as confusing. And that's I certainly like the kind of differentiation.
Yeah, and another thing with like scrummaging, for example, like you could say he's a loose head, but maybe in one game he's scrummaging on the tight head side. So it's hard for a coach when you can imagine you can't even see his face because his head's in a scrum. So that's where I kind of like to put a little highlight, a quick little highlight, just so the coach knows who he is. With Quinn's film, for example, you don't really need to, because all the footage is him receiving the ball and then playing, so it's him. So yeah, we just want to make it as easy and as visually pleasing for the coach as possible, so he can see what he wants to see within like a minute and a half, and then if he gets excited about the player, he'll go to his CV, pick up the full games, give his coaches a ring. It's good to have all this information on your CV.
Tell me a little bit about your process. So, for example, this player, did they just send you full games and then you picked out, you felt like these clips were best for attack, or did this student say, I think these ones are? And how much did those compare? I'm just curious what students believe are really good clips, and then versus you as a professional who reviews this stuff, like you're like, wait, that's not actually, I really like this clip, you know? So how does that work out for you?
Well, I try both. I actually have, so we have people can send me timestamps, and then I'll cut that out, or people can just send me whole games and I'll sift through them. The only thing I found was, especially with the younger kids, is they're sending you highlights of like line speed and defense, but they're not actually doing anything. They're for an example, they just run up and they don't tell you who they are. And so that's the sort of thing that you're like, well, you know, a coach doesn't really need to see how fast you can run. He'll see that by your CV when you give him your sprint times, for example. He wants to actually see your technique in making the tackle. So one kid sent me like eight clips. He timestamped the clips of him just running up in a line and back again, running up again and back again. And I was like, well, that's great. And it shows your work rate, but that's something a coach will get to after, once he's seen your highlight reel. Then he'll go to your full games, and that's what he'll watch. He'll watch, you know, your work rate and how involved you are in 80 minutes. So it's we do offer both, but I think it's much better to get but for me and the coaches I have helping me, we can go in and we know what coaches are looking for. We know what they want to see in certain positions, and I think it's easier to do that. But yeah, it's a tough one, because, you know, people might think, oh, this was a great catch, but I'll be like, well, but yeah, you knock it on after the fact. So there's stuff, and there's ways I can clip and get around it. But I think it's much easier if people send films. So all they do is they send me the films, links to the films. I'll download them, I'll cut them. I'll be able to zoom in, zoom out as well with the Adobe stuff, and then I'll send them back. And then they can have, if they're really not happy about it, then they can have one little edit and then we can get it out. And then so they'll get the whole package. They'll get videos, they'll get a CV, so they can do it. And there's also an option if they want some Instagram stuff as well, which is always good to promote yourself on Instagram. There's options to do little 15, 20-second cuts there as well.
Okay.
But again,
sorry.
Sorry. I was just going to say, like, obviously, yeah, we're a business, but we're a business. We want to grow rugby, and we want to help people become professional athletes. That's the goal of this, or get to college, the college they want to, and play rugby. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. We just want to help. We want to grow, and that's why we're going to, we'll have codes where you can get money off, and there might be guys that we'll actually do for free because we like their tape and we want to help. So that's what we're here for.
Good. Yeah. No, I think typically, I think everyone that I've luckily come across, I think altruistically, I think everyone, knows what the game gave to them and they want to give back, and there are ways that we want to help these young men and women, right, continue to follow their dreams of playing in college. I was curious what your thoughts were about students that, for example, let's say I've got a player that didn't really play as much, or unfortunately in their games they didn't get a chance to show off. Do you ever recommend students, or I don't know if you've ever seen where they kind of do some individual film, or are there any types of film like that you think is helpful, where I've seen like a player by themselves, like passing, or like when maybe they were injured the whole season and now they're trying to, like, I still have to show the coach something. And this happened a lot during, obviously, like when there was the big shutdown and no one played anything. So it was really hard. Is there any kind of close-up type stuff that you think could be helpful, that they could include if they aren't able to get film like this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did one about 2 months ago with we did a scrum session on our machine at San Diego Legion. So just doing some individual scrums on a machine will help. It will show line outs. You could do your movement across the ground and speed into the air, passing and kicking, all that sort of stuff. You could, yes, definitely put into a highlight reel. I mean, it doesn't, like I say, the coach just wants to see that you have the skills. He knows he can mold you into what he wants, whatever the game plan is, depending on the team you go to. So he'll know what he's looking for. He'll know the skills he's looking for. So whatever you can put in there, I think it's definitely good. Yeah.
Great. I was going to just make a comment too that some students, they might, let's say they're, right now, let's say starting in grade 11, right, which is a great time to start thinking about, okay, this year, is going to be my, kind of the year where they're starting to talk to coaches and those sorts of things. So it's really good to start getting in the practice of getting that film, hauling that ladder out, making sure that you're getting that together. I also recommend for a lot of students that, just because you do one, let's say they do a fall season, right? They get their film over to you, they get a highlight of the fall season. If they then go to Tropical Sevens in April, they should do another one from Tropical Sevens. If they do another tournament, to do another set, or update it, that it's not just kind of a one and done, like, great, like this, I think some coaches or I would assume would appreciate seeing some improvement, some growth, some changes, and also maybe from 15s to 7s, maybe the film is different. So to make sure that students, if they're sending you film, it's not just, oh, great, I got my highlight and I'm done. That's step one. You want to keep that communication going with coaches and to continue to kind of update them on, these are the things I'm doing now, in my fall season, I did this, and then here's even more film. Is there anything you would recommend? And actually, just because I touched on it right now, I've got players that do both. Do you have anything different when you do film for 7s versus 15s?
Yeah, well, the one thing I like to do is just keep them separate. So Quinn, the young man we just showed, he did a 7 season, so we did a 7s film for him and a 15th film. Yeah, it's always good to have both, like you said. And he actually sent a few. It's funny you mentioned it. He sent a few clips that he said, this was one of my better games, but I didn't get a chance to send it to you. Now I've got the footage. Can you add it? And I just clipped them in very quickly, because once I have the file, it's there, and it's very easy to update or add or change. So yeah, it's a really good idea. But yeah, I think I like to keep sevens because it's a completely different game. Yes, you could probably get some aerial skills in there and footwork and all the rest of it, but it's definitely good to keep them apart. And a coach would know straight away. Yeah, a coach would know straight away if he's watching sevens or 15s, and especially if you're looking for a 15s player and he sends you a highlight reel of sevens, you'll be like, well, hold on a minute, why is this happening? So, it's a good idea to do both. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's a great tip, and to help make your life easy too, right? If they're saying, okay, this is some 15s film and then here's 7s film, and they might be aware that it might be two different things. And this is more just for my knowledge, and I'm curious, have there been some things that you've seen, if there are players and families that want to do it themselves, like things you would tell them to avoid, that you think are distracting as a coach who's watching film, anything you would tell them, like, it's kind of a faux pas, you wouldn't want to do this, or it might affect the way that they're looked at?
Yeah. Well, if you miss a tackle, don't put that in. Definitely. If you lose the ball in contact, don't put that in. Like I say, I looked at some of these collegiate films and people were putting in missed tackles and stuff. And I was just like, well, hold on a minute, why are you putting this into your highlight reel? So yeah, you just want to make it, you don't want to make it too long either. You don't want to make it crazy. You don't want to have a ton of slow motion, a ton of graphics, because the coach just wants to see you at normal pace. Like I say, sometimes I'll add a little bit in there just to recapture focus. But mainly you just want to keep it as position specific as possible. So if you're a prop, you put scrums in there, and then a bit of carries and a bit of defense, and that maybe lifting at lineouts. So set piece first, and then focus on attack defense, because a coach is like, I want to see if this kid can scrum. I need someone that can scrum, and then we can teach them the rest, sort of thing. So just make as much specific to your position as possible, I would say, and not too long. Like anything over 3 minutes, a coach is probably not going to watch, in my experience.
Right. I mean, I love what you're saying about focusing on the positions, because I think often I might get a lock is a really good example. I have locks that say, I don't have any of that flashy breakaway kind of footage, right? Like, because that's just not what they're doing. And often I tell them, well, that's not, if a coach is looking at you as a lock, they're not expecting to see that either. They want to see the other stuff, right? They want to see you jumping in lineouts. They want to see, your position in scrums, or whatever it is. But sometimes they're like, well, I don't have anything to submit, because I don't have any what they see on Instagram or what their friends have of these, big open field tackles, which they're just not going to have most of the time, right? So I think it's good to explain to these students and families, like, if you're in these certain positions, the coaches are aware, and that is what they're looking for. They're looking for those things in those specific positions that you do well. I think it's funny that there are players that would submit film where they have a big mistake, but I think they don't really realize that coaches, if they're going to watch, they're going to watch the whole thing. Whatever you submit, they're not going to overlook that part. I think I tell players all the time that you might have a really great run. They get tackled, and then you see they don't get up, or they're like walking. You can see them when you're following them. You're like, oh, they're just kind of walking to the next rock, or they don't even make that one. They don't even make it to the next one. Like, the work rate is so slow. Like, great, you have one really good run, and then you're gassed for the next 10 minutes. That's not great, to show a coach. So just knowing what your knowledge base is helpful for them. Are there any last, I know we're kind of keeping this short and sweet for families, and of course we'll make sure to include all of your information to send to contact you if they want help with this. Are there any last kind of final tips or tricks or anything you want them to know as they're about to start gathering film, maybe for this upcoming year or in the years forward, if they're a freshman or sophomore right now, anything that they can do?
Yeah, more is less in this. You've got, the more footage you can get at different angles as well. If you can film an end on, that's also great. If you can film side on from elevation with the sun in your back, and just get quite not tight, but tight enough that you can see the ruck, for example, and maybe 2 or 3 players outside. So that way it's much better when you come to editing and the final product. You can get really close, and coaches can see footwork, body position, ball placement. They can see your skills in the air. So just getting a little tight on your filming and with elevation, and make sure the sun's behind you. And then as much tape as you can get, so you can get the best film. There's the more clips I have, the better I can make your film. Yeah, that's about it. More film. Yeah.
And you just made me think. I said one last thing, and then I thought of something as you were talking. Does it matter how they get the footage in terms of like with an iPhone, with like, I see the nice camera you have, you know what I mean? I think some families get nervous, like they don't have a really nice camera or something like that, or, is there any sort of recommended, I guess, technology they should be using, or is it okay to use like the phone that they have, mom and dad, up in the bleachers, that kind of thing?
Well, camcorders now I wouldn't say they're inexpensive, but you can pick up a pretty good Canon camcorder for $200, $250, and that's kind of what you need. That's all you would need. It's high definition. There's so the camera I have back there's actually 2 cameras. So one I go tight, and one I stay a little bit wide. And obviously, if you have enough money for that, it's great. And it's just it's like a $15 thing you buy on Amazon that you put onto your tripod. So what I'm going to do as well is, like, there'll be a link to my website, and then I'm going to put a PDF there with hints, tips, cameras that you should buy, tripods. It's always good to have, if you have a remote control for your camera, so you're not above the camera with your finger. If you can get these remote controls that link to your camera, so you just got one hand, you can zoom in and out, and it's much smoother, and the footage is much better. And again, they're not crazy expensive, and if your team has them, or your team has a budget, then you can speak to your team and see if you can get it. And just making sure that when you're filming, like I say, you get in quite tight, not crazy tight, but tight enough that we can actually see what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point of, if you're on a team and you have multiple players in your year that are probably embarking on the same journey, it would make sense for a group of juniors and those parents to get together. And there's a team here in Colorado that does this, where essentially the dads or moms, they work out a schedule where they're like, all right, Susie's filming this game this week, and then this other person, and they've all kind of pitched in to purchase. They got one of those. It's like I don't know if it's a pole, but it's like a thing that like tripod, puts, yeah. So puts them up high. So again, we get the vantage point. They have really good film, but they also had figured out a way to do it as a group, and then everyone shares the film. It's not just. Also, you don't get the kind of the horrible shot of just a parent running down the sideline after their son or daughter, and they're screaming, going, oh, Johnny, or you're hearing like they're yelling at the, whatever. You're like, let's just not have that kind of stuff. It's nice when it's a little more removed. So I love that you're going to have those tips, because that's definitely a question I get asked all the time. And I love that they can just go to you. That's going to be a resource for them to come through to you. And are there any, I already said this, but any last things before we kind of end our, and I would definitely love, once we do this, if there's other questions that come in, we can do this again to kind of address some of those questions and keep this conversation going.
And like I said, there'll be a link to the website, and so it's Scott at Ruck Films. Like, I'm happy to answer questions. I want to help. I want to get guys playing. So, I'll take time. I'll even, if people want to call and speak, I'm happy to help as much as possible. And I'll put links to cameras that we use, all the best stuff, and all the kind of not budget, but the stuff that's not maybe less expensive. So yeah, I'll put all that together, and it will be available on the website. But yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Great. And just one last comment from me, if you are a student that is, kind of starting on this journey, like we said, certainly a good place to start is maybe building a profile with one of my partners. I love Next Phase Rugby. I think they've done a really good job of building a platform. And within that platform, you can then include your links. So you can kind of put all of this together. Thanks so much, Scott, for your time. And thanks to everyone for watching. And hopefully we will be in touch soon.